Captain Alexandra Morgan stood at the command center of the TNS Relentless, her fingers tracing the holographic readouts that danced before her. The massive battleship, pride of the Terran Naval Service, cruised silently through the Orion sector. At nearly 3 kilometers in length, the Relentless represented the pinnacle of human engineering and military might. "Captain, we're detecting unusual radiation spikes from Reactor 3, Lieutenant Sarah Hayes reported, her voice steady despite the concern evident in her eyes. Morgan's jaw tightened. The Relentless carried 6 fusion reactors, each capable of powering a small city. A spike in any of them could spell disaster. "Show me the patterns," she ordered, bringing up the diagnostic display. As she studied the fluctuating energy signatures, a notification flashed across her personal terminal. Classification level: Ultra Black. Source: First Contact War Archives. Morgan's attention split between the reactor crisis and this unexpected data burst from Fleet Command. Engineering reports increasing instability in the magnetic containment field. Hayes updated. Chief Roberts suggests emergency shutdown procedures. Negative, Morgan replied, her eyes catching something in both the reactor readings and the classified footage simultaneously playing in her peripheral vision. Those energy patterns, they're similar to something I've seen before. The classified footage showed the Battle of Proxima, where the destroyer TS Dauntless had faced off against 3 hegemony dreadnoughts. The alien vessels had been massive, their energy shields supposedly impenetrable. But Captain William Chen had seen something everyone else had missed. "Lieutenant, bring up the resonance frequencies of Reactor 3's containment field," Morgan commanded, her mind racing. Cross-reference them with the standard operating frequencies of hegemony shield technology. Hayes looked confused but complied. "Match found, Captain, but I don't understand. During first contact, we discovered that hegemony shields operated on rotating frequency patterns. They thought it made them invulnerable," Morgan explained, her fingers flying across the controls. Captain Chen proved them wrong by timing his kinetic strikes to exploit microscopic gaps in their shield rotation. Understanding dawned on Hayes' face. The reactor's containment field is cycling through similar frequencies. Exactly. We don't need to shut it down. We need to synchronize it. Morgan opened a channel to engineering. "Chief Roberts, prepare to match Reactor 3's containment field to my transmitted pattern. On my mark." The next 3 minutes were tense as Morgan calculated the precise timing. One mistake could result in a catastrophic breach. But she had learned long ago that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology. It was in their ability to see patterns others missed and take calculated risks. "Execute," Morgan ordered. The reactor's angry howl subsided to a steady hum as the containment field synchronized with its unstable patterns rather than fighting against them. Crisis averted. "Well done, Captain," a new voice spoke. Admiral James Chen materialized on the bridge via hologram. "Though I shouldn't be surprised. You've always had a knack for turning problems into opportunities." Morgan straightened. "Admiral, I wasn't aware you were monitoring our situation." "I wasn't. I'm here about the archives you just received." His expression grew serious. "That footage from Proxima wasn't sent by accident. We've detected signs of another hegemony incursion, but this time they're not alone. They've formed an alliance, the Concordiat." Morgan's mind raced through the implications. The hegemony had never recovered from their humiliation at Proxima, where a single human destroyer had outsmarted their most advanced warships. If they were back with allies. "Your orders, Admiral." "The Relentless is being redirected to the Epsilon Eridani system. Intelligence suggests the Concordiat is massing forces there. They still think humanity relies on primitive kinetic weapons. They still haven't learned." Morgan nodded, already calculating courses in her head. The Relentless carried weaponry that would make the mass drivers of the First Contact War look like slingshots. But more importantly, it carried a crew that understood humanity's true advantage: the ability to innovate, to see solutions where others saw only problems. Setting course for Epsilon Eridani, she confirmed. We'll show them just how dangerous primitive can be. The asteroid belt of Epsilon Eridani stretched before the TNS Relentless like a cosmic minefield. Captain Morgan studied the tactical display, where dozens of red markers indicated Concordia energy signatures. They thought they were hidden. They were wrong. Still no sign they detected us. Lieutenant Hayes reported from her station. Their sensor sweeps are passing right through our position. Morgan allowed herself a small smile. The Relentless's metamaterial hull absorbed energy emissions like a black hole swallowed light, while alien civilizations had pursued ever more powerful scanning technology. Humanity had perfected the art of becoming invisible. Captain, Communications Officer Jackson interrupted, his voice tight. We're receiving a coded transmission from Admiral Chen. Priority Ultra. The message decoded to reveal a familiar face, Captain David Torres, Morgan's mentor from the Academy. The timestamp showed this was his final transmission before his stealth corvette went dark 3 days ago. LX. Torres's hologram flickered with static. If you're seeing this, I didn't make it out. But what I found, it's bigger than we thought. The Concordia isn't just building a fleet. They're constructing something at these coordinates, something that uses technology similar to. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Morgan's hands clenched. Torres had taught her everything she knew about stealth operations. He'd also been her brother's godfather. Analysis of those coordinates. Deep in the belt, Captain Hayes responded. Heavy electromagnetic interference. But we're detecting unusual mass concentrations. Show me the asteroid distribution patterns. Morgan studied the field intently. After a moment, she saw it. They're not random. Look at the spacing between these larger bodies. Understanding dawned on Hayes's face. They're artificial. The Concordia is using hollowed-out asteroids as construction facilities. Smart, Morgan admitted. Energy signatures get lost in the natural radiation, and solid rock provides better cover than any stealth system. But they made one mistake. Mom. They're thinking in straight lines. Natural asteroid fields are chaos. This is too perfect. Morgan opened a channel to navigation. Plot us a course through the debris, old school style. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Old school meant manual navigation, no computer plots, no standard trajectories. It meant flying like their ancestors had sailed Earth's oceans, reading the currents and winds of space. The Relentless glided through the asteroid field like a shark through dark waters. Every few minutes, they passed what looked like natural rock formations, but were actually disguised Concordia facilities. Morgan had the ship's passive sensors recording everything. Contact. Tactical suddenly announced. Enemy patrol bearing 340. They're on an intercept course. Hold position, Morgan ordered. They were next to a tumbling asteroid roughly the size of the Relentless. Match rotation with that rock. Lieutenant Hayes, give me a mineral analysis. High metal content, Captain. Mostly iron and nickel. Perfect. Engage surface clamps and power down to minimal life support. Let's become part of the landscape. The massive warship grabbed onto the asteroid with electromagnetic clamps, matching its lazy spin perfectly. To any observer, they would appear to be just another metallic space rock. The Concordia patrol passed within kilometers of their position. Morgan watched through passive cameras as the alien vessels swept the area with energy beams, their sophisticated sensors searching for any sign of human ships. They're using a new type of detection system, Hayes whispered, though there was no way the enemy could hear them. Trying to pick up our drive signature. But they're not looking for what they should be, Morgan replied. Humans learned long ago that the best place to hide is right in plain sight. The patrol moved on, finding nothing but ordinary asteroids. Once they were clear, Morgan ordered minimal power restored. Send everything we've recorded back to Fleet Command. Tight beam transmission. Then plot us a course to those coordinates Torres sent. Time to find out what they're building out here. As the Relentless prepared to move, Morgan accessed her personal logs. Final entry, Captain David Torres, she recorded. You taught us to hunt in the dark. Now we'll finish what you started. Rest easy, old friend. We'll take it from here. The massive warship detached from its asteroid hiding place and slipped deeper into the belt, hunting for answers. Somewhere ahead lay the Concordia's secret project, and perhaps, Morgan thought grimly, an explanation for why they'd killed one of Earth's finest captains to keep it hidden. The distress call came without warning. This is New Providence Colony. We are under attack. Multiple Concordia warships have. The transmission dissolved into static. Captain Morgan's blood ran cold. New Providence was a civilian settlement, home to over 50,000 colonists. Time to intercept. 17 minutes at maximum burn, Hayes responded. But Captain, our stealth will be compromised the moment we light up the engines. I know. Morgan's mind raced through scenarios. Sound battle stations, all hands to combat positions. The Relentless's engines roared to life, pushing the massive warship to speeds that would have torn lesser vessels apart. As they approached New Providence, the tactical display lit up with enemy signatures. 5 Concordia dreadnoughts, tactical reported. They're using their energy weapons on the colony's shields. Ratings suggest shield failure in 6 minutes. Morgan studied the enemy formation. The aliens had positioned themselves in a perfect pentagonal pattern, their energy weapons synchronized for maximum effect. Textbook Concordia tactics, and their greatest weakness. Deploy the thunderclap system, Morgan ordered. All batteries. The crew worked with practiced efficiency as the Relentless's hull plates shifted, revealing rows of advanced mass drivers. Each contained a projectile, enhanced with experimental gravitic technology, capable of reaching velocities that violated several laws of physics. Thunderclap ready, Captain. But we're still out of optimal range. Morgan's eyes narrowed. They don't know that. Lieutenant Hayes, broadcast on all frequencies. Let's announce ourselves. The comm system crackled to life. Concordia vessels, this is Captain Alexandra Morgan of the TNS Relentless. You are firing on a civilian target. Stand down immediately. The response came swiftly. Human vessel, this is Fleet Commander Xanthar. Your primitive kinetic weapons are no match for our shields. Surrender, and we may spare your colonists. Primitive. Morgan allowed herself a grim smile. Execute pattern Echo 7. The Relentless suddenly split into 5 identical sensor images, a trick of electronic warfare that scattered the enemy formation. As they adjusted their shields to track multiple targets, Morgan gave the order. All thunderclap batteries, fire. What happened next would be studied in war colleges across the galaxy for decades. The gravitic projectiles, traveling at near relativistic speeds, didn't so much penetrate the Concordia shields as ignore them completely. The aliens had perfected the art of stopping energy weapons. They had never conceived of shells that could alter their own mass mid-flight. 2 dreadnoughts erupted in silent explosions. A third spun out of control, its hull breached in multiple places. The remaining 2 broke formation, their perfect tactics shattered by an attack that shouldn't have been possible. Enemy vessels attempting to regroup, tactical reported. They're charging their main guns. Not today, Morgan muttered. Helm, bring us in close. Let's show them why humans still believe in armor. The Relentless plunged between the remaining dreadnoughts just as they fired. Their energy beams splashed harmlessly against the warship's metamaterial hull, which absorbed and redirected the energy into its own weapon systems. Thunderclap batteries recharged from enemy fire, Captain. Target their engines. Let's end this. The final shots were precise and devastating. When the energy storms cleared, the remaining Concordia ships were adrift, their crews transmitting surrender signals. Colony shields holding at 12%. Hayes reported. We got here in time, Captain. Morgan nodded, but her expression remained grim. This was too easy. The Concordia doesn't waste ships on raids. She opened a channel to the colony. New Providence. What were they targeting before we arrived? The response confirmed her fears. They'd breached our research facility, Captain. Downloaded everything. These weren't raiders. They were after our data on human gravitic technology. Morgan's mind flashed back to Torres's last transmission, to the secret project hidden in the asteroid field. They needed our research to complete something. Something big. She turned to her crew. Secure those Concordiate ships. I want their navigation data. It's time we stopped reacting and took the fight to them. As rescue ships approached New Providence, Morgan recorded a message to Fleet Command. The Concordiate had revealed their desperation, and in doing so, had shown their hand. Now it was humanity's turn to strike back. The black hole at Sigma 9 has been weaponized. Admiral Chen's hologram cast long shadows across the Relentless's briefing room. The Concordiate is using its gravitational field to mask the energy signature of their main fleet. Captain Morgan studied the tactical overlay, where a massive accretion disk spun around the cosmic monster. They think we won't dare get close enough to investigate. Most species wouldn't, Chen agreed. Their computers say it's impossible to maintain stable orbit that near to a singularity. Morgan's lips curved into a slight smile. Most species don't play chess, Admiral. After the briefing, Morgan gathered her senior staff. Lieutenant Hayes noticed the old-fashioned chess set the captain had brought, a gift from Torres years ago. Planning our strategy, ma'am. Understanding our opponent, Morgan replied, setting up the pieces. The Concordiate thinks in straight lines. Advance, retreat, fixed formations. But chess, she moved a knight in its distinctive L-shaped pattern. Chess teaches you that the best move isn't always the obvious one. The Relentless approached Sigma 9 from an oblique angle, using the radiation from the accretion disk to mask their heat signature. Morgan had divided her task force into 3 elements. The main battle group, a squadron of stealth corvettes, and a cluster of automated drones disguised as debris. Concordiate fleet detected, Tactical announced. 27 capital ships in standard crescent formation. Morgan nodded. Just as expected, they were using the black hole's gravity to anchor their position, creating a killing zone that no enemy could cross without being torn apart. Launch Operation Ghost Gambit, she ordered. The drones activated first, their false energy signatures mimicking the human battle squadron making a direct assault. The Concordiate fleet responded instantly, their formation shifting to create overlapping fields of fire. Enemy ships adjusting shields to maximum power, Hayes reported. They're committing to their position. Perfect. Morgan moved another chess piece on her board. Deploy our corvettes. Let's add some chaos to their physics equations. The stealth ships darted through the debris field, each releasing clusters of sensor buoys. To the Concordiate's detection systems, it suddenly appeared as if multiple human fleets were approaching from different vectors. Their formation is breaking up, Tactical reported with satisfaction. They're trying to calculate optimal positioning against multiple threats. Morgan watched as the enemy ships began to move, their computers attempting to solve an impossible tactical puzzle. That's when she revealed her true strategy. All ships, execute slingshot maneuver, she commanded. Use the black hole's gravity exactly as calculated. The Relentless and its battle group suddenly accelerated toward the singularity. The Concordiate commanders watched in horror as the human ships deliberately dove into the killing zone, but at precisely calculated angles that used the gravitational forces to their advantage. Enemy vessels firing. Multiple energy beams lanced out, but the human ships were moving too fast, their trajectories bending in ways the Concordiate targeting systems couldn't predict. Return fire, Morgan ordered calmly. Show them why we studied orbital mechanics before we ever left Earth. The thunderclap batteries opened up, their gravitic shells following curved paths through space that turned the black hole's deadly pull into a weapon. Concordiate ships found their carefully calculated positions becoming death traps as human warships executed maneuvers their computers had deemed impossible. "Mom," Hayes called out. We're detecting massive energy buildup from their flagship, some kind of experimental weapon. Morgan glanced at her chessboard, where a knight stood poised to deliver checkmate, launch our final surprise. The debris field around the black hole suddenly came alive. Not just drones, but hundreds of automated weapon platforms that had been hidden there for days. The Concordiate fleet found itself caught in a perfect crossfire of their own making. Enemy flagship is powering down, Tactical reported. They're signaling surrender. Morgan picked up the Black King from her chessboard. Sometimes victory isn't about having the strongest pieces, she said quietly. It's about understanding the whole board. She opened a channel to the enemy flagship. Concordiate vessels, prepare for boarding. I think it's time we had a talk about that secret project of yours. As her crews secured the enemy ships, Morgan sent a brief message to Fleet Command. Sigma 9 secured. The game continues. She knew this was just one move in a larger match. But it was a move that proved humans could outthink even the most advanced alien combat systems. The electromagnetic storm raged across the Procyon sector, massive bolts of energy crackling between clouds of ionized gas. Within the command center of the TNS Relentless, Captain Morgan watched as her crew made final preparations. Strike carriers Normandy and Midway report ready, Lieutenant Hayes announced. All fighter squadrons are armed and prepped for launch. Morgan nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display where 300 dots represented her combat drones and fighter craft. The Concordiate had never encountered carrier warfare in space. They were about to learn why Earth's navies had perfected it centuries ago. Enemy fleet holding position near the gas giant, Tactical reported. Their energy shields are at maximum, expecting another thunderclap assault. They're fighting the last battle, Morgan said. Show me the storm front analysis. A holographic representation of the electromagnetic tempest appeared, its chaotic patterns shifting and swirling. Most commanders would avoid such conditions. Energy weapons became unpredictable, sensors were clouded, and navigation computers struggled to compensate. Perfect conditions for human pilots. All squadrons, this is Captain Morgan. The Concordiate thinks their technology makes them invulnerable. Today, we prove that the human spirit is the greatest weapon ever created. Launch when ready. The launch bays of 3 carrier ships opened simultaneously. Fighters streamed out in practiced formations while swarms of combat drones moved to their programmed positions. To the Concordiate's sensors, the electromagnetic storm would mask their approach until it was too late. First wave approaching optimal range, Hayes reported. Enemy still hasn't detected our presence. Morgan opened a channel to her squadron leaders. Remember your training. Their point defense systems are calibrated for capital ships. Use your size to your advantage. The first indication the Concordiate had of the attack was when seemingly empty space erupted with fighters. The alien ship's energy shields, designed to repel massive weapons, proved almost useless against the swarm of smaller craft. Ghost Squadron, hitting their flanks. Commander Sarah Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm. These bastards don't know how to handle multiple targets. Morgan watched as her fighters executed maneuvers that would have torn apart larger ships. The human pilots relied on instinct and training, while the combat drones followed attack patterns based on Earth's most successful aerial combat strategies. Enemy vessels attempting to regroup, Tactical announced. They're trying to form a defensive sphere. Exactly as expected, Morgan smiled. All carriers, execute WASP protocols. The 3 carrier ships suddenly powered up their main drives, burning through the electromagnetic storm like ancient sail ships emerging from fog. The Concordiate fleet, focused on the fighter swarm, didn't realize they'd been herded into position. Launch second wave, Morgan ordered. Show them why humans never abandoned the concept of naval aviation. Another 300 fighters and drones joined the battle. The Concordiate ships found themselves caught in a 3-dimensional killing field, their sophisticated targeting systems overwhelmed by the sheer number of attack vectors. "Mom," Hayes called out. "They're launching their own automated defense drones." As predicted, Morgan replied calmly. Execute Operation Checkmate. The human fighters suddenly broke off their attack runs. In their place, the combat drones initiated their final protocols. Each drone carried a miniaturized version of the Thunderclap system, not powerful enough to threaten capital ships normally, but devastating in such numbers. The Concordiate's defensive drones, programmed to intercept energy weapons, never stood a chance against the kinetic barrage. Their own shift shields, still configured for capital ship combat, created perfect gaps for the smaller projectiles to slip through. Enemy flagship is signaling, Hayes reported, excitement in her voice. They're requesting terms. Morgan activated the main screen, facing the Concordiate commander. This is Captain Morgan. I suggest unconditional surrender. My pilots are eager to demonstrate more of their capabilities. As the enemy fleet powered down their weapons, Morgan sent a brief message to her squadron leaders. Well done, Wings of Terra. Today you've proven why humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to adapt any environment into our battlefield. The electromagnetic storm continued to rage, but within its chaos, human fighters flew victory patterns around the defeated Concordiate vessels. They had just rewritten the book on space warfare, and the galaxy would never be the same. The blue giant star of Helios Nexus dominated the view screen, its surface churning with massive solar flares. The TNS Relentless hung impossibly close to the stellar monster, its hull glowing cherry red from the intense radiation. Hull temperature at critical levels, Lieutenant Hayes reported, wiping sweat from her brow. Even with environmental systems at maximum, the bridge felt like an oven. The outer plating is starting to deform. Captain Morgan studied the readings, calculating margins that grew thinner by the second. Status of the rest of the fleet. Maintaining position. But Commander Rodriguez reports the Normandy's cooling systems are approaching failure. Morgan opened a channel to all ships. Hold your positions. Remember what we're fighting for. She turned to her tactical officer. Time until the Concordiate fleet arrives. 10 minutes, assuming they follow their projected course through the jump point. The plan was insane by any rational standard. Morgan had positioned her entire battle group within the corona of a blue giant star, using its electromagnetic interference to mask their presence. The Concordiate would emerge from faster-than-light travel directly into their trap, assuming the human ships didn't cook themselves first. Captain, Hayes spoke softly. Engineering reports microfractures forming in reactor shielding. Chief Roberts says we have maybe 15 minutes before catastrophic failure. Morgan nodded. The timing would be perfect, or they would all die. Tell Roberts to route emergency power to the structural integrity fields. We only need to hold together long enough to spring the trap. The minutes crawled by like hours. Warning indicators screamed for attention as systems throughout the ship approached their breaking points. The crew worked their stations with grim determination, each person knowing they were part of the most audacious ambush in naval history. Quantum distortion detected. Tactical suddenly announced. Multiple signatures. They're coming through. The Concordiate fleet materialized exactly where Morgan had predicted. Their formation was perfect, their energy shields already powered up against any conventional attack. But they weren't prepared for what awaited them. All ships, execute maneuver Dante's Inferno, Morgan commanded. The human fleet erupted from the star's corona like demons from hell itself. Their hulls glowed white-hot, trailing streams of plasma as they charged straight at the enemy. The Concordiate commanders, faced with what appeared to be suicide runs by radiation-crazed humans, made their fatal mistake. They held position. Main batteries, fire, Morgan ordered. Every human ship unleashed their thunderclap weapons simultaneously. The superheated projectiles, already accelerated by their emergence from the star's gravity well, struck with unprecedented force. Concordiate shields, calibrated for normal space conditions, buckled under impacts that carried the added energy of a stellar furnace. Direct hits across their line. Tactical reported jubilantly. Their formation is breaking. But Morgan wasn't finished. Launch solar torpedoes. These were her secret weapons, missiles designed to gather and concentrate solar plasma. As they streaked toward the enemy fleet, they drew burning tendrils of stellar matter behind them like comets of fire. Enemy vessels attempting emergency jump, Hayes called out. They're trying to retreat. Not this time, Morgan said grimly. Activate gravity anchors. The human fleet had deployed specialized buoys during their wait in the corona. Now they activated, creating a web of localized gravitational fields that made faster-than-light travel impossible. The Concordiat ships were trapped between the star's killing heat and the human fleet's guns. Enemy flagship is broadcasting, Hayes reported. Audio only. This is Fleet Commander Xanthar, a strained voice transmitted. You waited in a star. Your ships should have melted. You still don't understand, Commander, Morgan replied. Humans have been testing our limits since we first looked up at the stars. Today, we just pushed them a little further. The battle ended quickly after that. As rescue shuttles began recovering survivors from the crippled Concordiat vessels, Morgan ordered her ships to safe distance from the star. The crew cheered as the temperature finally began to drop. Send word to Fleet Command, Morgan ordered, allowing herself to relax slightly. The Helios Nexus gambit was successful, but make sure they understand. We've pushed the Concordiat into a corner. Whatever they've been building in secret, they'll have to use it soon. She watched the blue giant's surface roil with solar flares, knowing that humanity had just rewritten the rules of space combat once again. But her victory celebration was tempered by certainty that the Concordiat's ultimate weapon still waited in the darkness ahead. The Concordiat flagship emerged from the asteroid field like a leviathan from ancient myths. Its hull gleamed with otherworldly metal that seemed to drink in light itself, and energy patterns rippled across its surface in impossible geometries. Size comparison complete, Hayes reported, her voice hushed. It's 3 times larger than the Relentless. Energy readings they're off the scale. Captain Morgan studied the tactical display, but her thoughts were on the decoded transmission she'd received hours earlier. Her brother, Commander James Morgan, was being held prisoner aboard that monstrosity. The message had been brief. Surrender, or he dies. Analysis of their shield technology, she asked. Definitely precursor artifacts, ma'am. They've integrated ancient defensive systems into their hull. Our standard weapons won't even scratch it. Morgan nodded grimly. And that's exactly what they expect us to try. Show me the shield frequency patterns. The display shifted, showing cascading waves of energy that defied conventional physics. The Concordiat had found something in their archaeological digs, technology from a long-dead civilization that had mastered energy manipulation beyond current understanding. Fleet Commander Xanthar is hailing us, communications reported. The alien commander's image appeared on screen, his compound eyes gleaming with triumph. Captain Morgan, I trust you can appreciate the futility of resistance now. This vessel carries defensive systems from the precursor empire itself. Your primitive kinetic weapons are useless. Morgan's expression remained neutral. You've gone to a lot of trouble to prove your superiority, Commander, including kidnapping my brother. Ah yes, Commander James Morgan. Would you like to see him? The view shifted to show James, bruised but defiant, held between 2 guards. Surrender your fleet, and he lives. James, Morgan called out. Remember that game we played as kids? The one with the crystal glass. Her brother's eyes widened slightly in recognition. Yeah, sis. The one where we learned about resonance frequency. Xanthar cut the transmission. Your human sentimentality is irrelevant. You have 1 hour to surrender. Morgan immediately turned to her crew. Tell me everything about those shield patterns. Every fluctuation, every cycle, every harmonic. The next 50 minutes were a blur of calculations and preparations. The human fleet moved into an unusual formation, not the tight battle group the Concordiat expected, but a loose sphere around their massive flagship. All ships report ready, Hayes announced. But Captain, are you sure about this? Morgan nodded. The Concordiat thinks they've mastered precursor technology, but they're just copying something they don't understand. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, execute Operation Glassharp. The human fleet began firing, but not with their main guns. Instead, each ship launched precisely calibrated micro-projectiles, timing them to the shield's energy cycles. None of them were meant to penetrate. They were meant to ring. Enemy shields holding. Tactical reported. No damage. Keep firing, Morgan ordered. Adjust timing to match the resonance patterns. Like a finger circling the rim of a crystal glass, each impact created a subtle vibration in the shield frequencies. Alone, they were meaningless. Together, they began to build. Shield harmonics are becoming unstable, Hayes reported. They're trying to adjust the frequencies, but they can't change them fast enough. The massive flagship's shields began to shimmer with discordant energy. The precursor technology, designed to be impenetrable, was being undone by a principle so basic that children on Earth played with it. Now, Morgan commanded, all ships, thunderclap batteries, fire. The combined barrage struck just as the shield harmonics reached critical resonance. The impenetrable defense shattered like glass, leaving the flagship exposed. Boarding teams, launch, Morgan ordered. Ground forces, prepare for close quarters combat. Let's get my brother back. The battle that followed would become legendary. Human marines against alien defenders amid the corridors of a ship built with precursor technology. But the outcome was never in doubt. The Concordiat had relied on borrowed power they didn't understand. The humans had relied on fundamental principles they'd mastered centuries ago. Hours later, as medical teams treated the rescued prisoners and engineering crews secured the captured flagship, James found his sister on the bridge. Crystal glass, huh? He grinned. Mom would be proud. Morgan smiled back, but her expression quickly turned serious. We've won this battle, but capturing this ship means we finally know what they were building out there in the asteroid field. She gestured to the tactical display, where multiple signals were appearing. They made more than one. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Captain Alexandra Morgan strode in, her boots clicking against the polished floor. Behind her, a holographic display showed the wreckage of 3 precursor-enhanced battleships, the last of the Concordiat's secret fleet. The human stands before us unannounced, one counselor protested, their crystalline form shimmering with indignation. The human, Morgan replied calmly, stands before you because your military doctrine nearly started a galactic war. She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show tactical data from the recent battles. You all received reports about our victories. Now it's time you understood why they happened. The chamber's atmosphere grew tense as Morgan pulled out her old chess set, the one Torres had given her years ago. She placed it on the central podium, drawing confused murmurs from the assembled representatives. This is how we teach strategy on Earth, she explained, setting up the pieces. Not with computer simulations or energy matrices, but with a game that forces you to think beyond simple power dynamics. We are not here for human games, another counselor began, but Morgan cut them off by playing footage from the Helios Nexus battle. You watched our ships survive inside a star's corona, she said. You saw us turn your most advanced shields against you. You witnessed carriers and fighters change the nature of space combat itself. But you still haven't learned the most important lesson. She moved a pawn on the chessboard. In chess, the weakest piece can change the entire game if used correctly. Humanity didn't become a spacefaring power by having the strongest weapons or the most advanced technology. We did it by understanding that victory belongs to those who best use what they have. The hologram shifted again, showing the captured Concordiat flagship. You found precursor technology and thought it made you invincible. We found basic physics principles and turned them into a victory strategy. That's the difference between copying power and understanding it. Lieutenant Hayes stepped forward, distributing data crystals to each council member. These contain our complete analysis of recent fleet engagements, including the fundamental principles we use to achieve victory. We're sharing them freely." Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. One counselor stood, their insectoid features expressing confusion. "You would give away your tactical advantages." Morgan smiled. "Our advantage isn't in the tactics themselves. It's in how we think. Earth's oceans taught us warfare long before we reached the stars. We learned to adapt, to innovate, to turn nature itself into our ally. You can study our methods, but until you understand that mindset, you'll never fully grasp them." She turned to face the entire chamber. "The Concordiat's defeat proves that relying on supposed technological superiority is a path to failure. Real military doctrine must be adaptive, creative, and grounded in fundamental principles." The chamber erupted in discussion as Morgan's words sank in. Finally, the council president spoke. "What would you have us do, Captain Morgan?" "Learn," she replied simply. "Not just from humans, but from every species' unique perspective. Create a doctrine that embraces diversity of thought instead of enforcing conformity of action." Hours later, as the council debated the formation of a new galactic military academy, Morgan found Hayes waiting outside the chamber. "They're actually going to do it," Hayes said, amazed. "They're completely restructuring their approach to space warfare." Morgan nodded, picking up her chess set. "And they're sending their best officers to Earth for training. Speaking of which," she smiled at her lieutenant, "how would you like to help teach the next generation of space tacticians?" Hayes' eyes widened. "Me? But I'm not." "You've learned what matters most," Morgan interrupted. "That space warfare isn't about technology or power. It's about understanding, adaptation, and the courage to try the impossible." As they walked toward their waiting shuttle, Morgan glanced out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited. But now, thanks to humanity's influence, the galaxy would face them with a deeper understanding of what truly made a military force great. It wasn't the strength of their weapons or the power of their shields. It was the ability to look at an impossible situation and see not just problems, but possibilities. That was humanity's greatest gift to the stars, and its lasting legacy in the cosmic theater of war.